Right. I'm Ariel Frost. I'm the manager of partnerships and learning here at Ingenuity.
I'm Christine Ng. I'm the data analyst on the data and research team at Ingenuity.
And hello, everyone. My name is Angela Lynn, and I'm the director of data and research. And so today we will be sharing with you all items from our latest data snapshot. And so now, before we go into that, we will do some quick introduction on Ingenuity. I believe most of you are probably familiar with our work, maybe though you only know one pillar of our work. And so as a quick introduction, Ingenuity's mission is that every student in every grade in every Chicago public school has access to high quality arts as part of a well-rounded education. And these four primary strategies are anchored by data that you see here. And so what we are sharing today is part of that data and research pillar, and data that we're sharing today, as well as what we collect from CPS schools and arts organizations, then feeds into a lot of other internal strategy as well as external strategy. But here we'll take a look at our internal work. So partnerships and learning, Ariel's representing that team today. Their work includes a lot of building capacity, supporting, igniting, and really fostering a lot of partnerships across the sector with 400 arts organizations and CPS schools. They also help with professional learning and navigating the many processes between arts organizations working in CPS schools. We also have the Creative Schools Fund, or CSF. This is Ingenuity's grant-making arm. As an arts organization or school, you may be familiar with this. There are a number of there's an umbrella of support mechanisms within the Creative Schools Fund. If you're a school, you may be familiar with Arts Essentials. This is $1,000 of supplies and materials that goes into your school budget when you complete and submit data for an annual Creative Schools survey. As an arts organization, you may be familiar with the partnership grants, and that has been a steadfast pillar of the Creative Schools Fund since its inception in 2013. And so a lot of the work that we're doing with the Creative Schools Fund is also, again, fueled by data and research. And this is a public-private partnership with the city, Chicago Public Schools, and Ingenuity. Finally, we also use data and research to really anchor a lot of our advocacy. Of course, we know the arts are core. And so with that, I'll say with a latest advocacy item that was released, we have a piece on the elected school boards and providing some data around those districts for the upcoming school board elections. And so altogether, that is data. We're also going to dive a little bit into how data drives sector impact. And so this is how we kind of view our work here. We view that data is a starting point, midpoint, endpoint, all together. It's very cyclical. It occurs throughout the entire year and it's iterative. We start with gathering data that's actually occurring right now from CPS schools and arts organizations. We then move into analysis. We then disseminate and report our data, such as what you're attending here today, through data snapshots. And finally, we want to activate and align the entire sector using these data points as well. And that can be with the district as a whole, arts organizations, funders, as well as internally. And so you all today are really playing a role in numbers 3 and 4. And so thank you again for joining. We have a piece of a report or a report that we've disseminated in section 3. I really want to help align and activate with you all today as well. And so for one more slide in this introduction, if you are less familiar with Ingenuity's data products, I think this continuum does a pretty good job in talking about it. We serve a lot of different stakeholders. We kind of view this as ranging on this continuum from on-the-ground change to systems level change. To really simplify things, on-the-ground change might be arts teachers, principals, and arts organizations. To simplify things on the right, systems level change may include funders, CPS leadership, as well as the CPS Department of Arts Education. And altogether, how do we make sure that you have the data that you need? Well, to start us off, of course, click the wrong thing there. Here we go. To start us off, we know we have to bookend the spectrum. Yeah, hopefully you're familiar with Artlook. We'll throw some links in the chat as well. Artlook can be your place to finding data points on school level arts offerings as well as organizational level arts offerings. You also can use it to find potential partnerships. The State of the Arts reports on the other side, and that really reports on sector level findings. Now, in between, we have some other data products depending on your interests or needs, I should say. We have an arts organization impact report to evaluate your reach and impact through school partnerships if you're an arts organization. If you're a school, if you're a principal or arts teacher that submitted the data before, hopefully you're familiar and have received your Creative Schools Roadmap. And that is a customized document to be used for planning in the arts and reflects on where your school is in providing arts education access and quality, and how that compares to other schools in your network as well as across the district. Moving one step up, hopefully you've also all seen this too. For the first time ever in April, we released a state of the arts dashboard. If you're interested in that data from ArtLook or the state of the arts report, but you kind of want a medium grain size, you're looking for community areas, student demographics, ward, network, etc. All those filters are available for you to poke and play around with on that dashboard. And so we highly encourage you to check that out as well. And finally, the last missing piece is what we want to discuss today. It's that data snapshot. That is one step below of a state of the arts report. And let's talk about that now. So focusing in on data snapshots, that term really just means that these are analyses that take a closer look at information collected from ArtLook as well as other sources. So these don't replace that sector level state of the arts report. These do aggregate data points usually from ArtLook, and here's a look at some prior publications we have published. We have here high school arts offerings, arts education access and CPS, BIPOC representation and arts partners. And so these are all publicly available on Ingenuity's website. They usually take the form of either static PDF or interactive blog posts with visualizations you can play around with. And so without further ado, I will now pass this to Christine Ian, who has been doing a lot of great work on our current and newest data snapshot that was released 2 weeks ago. And so Christine, take it away.
Thank you, Angela. Very excited to go over the data and talk about this newest data snapshot that we released. Starting in this section of the presentation, we'll be taking a closer look at the data presented in the data snapshot on residency program costs and teaching artist compensation. We'll be going over the data collected, the methodology for collecting the data, and the key guiding questions to help orient us. The purpose of this data snapshot is to provide an initial understanding of residency program costs and teaching artist compensation within arts education in Chicago. As Angela mentioned earlier, there are no universal benchmarks on the program costs and teaching artist compensation. While the current landscape is characterized by the diversity of innovative partnerships, establishing some clear benchmarks could provide a structured approach to managing and ensuring equity within these arts partnerships. We're hoping that this snapshot can allow for both the schools and arts organizations to have a common language to start conversations and to take programs away. And for those of you who haven't seen the snapshot, it is available on the Ingenuity website as a blog post. It contains text, summary tables, and interactive visualizations explaining and showcasing the data. In the later part of this presentation, I'll be live demoing the interactive visualization. And next we'll start by going through the data and methodology. In this data and methodology slide, I'll be going through where the data was collected. The data used in this data snapshot was collected from the 2023 to 24 CUDA Schools Funds Partnerships Grant. And to be completely transparent, it was noted that this data may be used for research purposes in the application. And of course, the data has been anonymized, so no entities can be identified from these analyses. We have analyzed 143 completed applications, and so that means data from 143 applications are showcased in this snapshot. Schools can apply for grants up to $10,000. And in terms of the application process for the CUDA Schools Fund, schools and arts organizations fill out a proposed budget for the spring semester partnership. The proposed budget then includes different line items that we use as variables in analyses that you'll see in the snapshot. As part of the application, arts organizations also fill out supplemental questions on the teaching artists' compensation. This snapshot explores the following questions, and you can also think of these as guiding questions to keep in mind as we walk through the data. What are the costs associated with an arts partnership residency? How are these costs allocated across categories such as arts partner services, teacher planning, program supplies, and field trips? What is the current landscape of teaching artists' hourly compensation for planning and implementation? How do residency program costs and teaching artists' compensation rates vary by artistic discipline? So how does it compare across the different disciplines such as visual arts, music, dance, theater, media arts, and literary arts? So keep these questions in mind, and we'll now be moving on to showing the data on residency program costs. On this slide, we have a table giving an overview of what is the median cost for each of the category despite the discipline. So keep in mind that this table is a summary for all disciplines, and we decided to report the median of these different costs because the median is the midpoint of the data, meaning that it is the literal middle value when the numbers are ordered, and the median is less influenced by outliers such as very high or very low values. The median for partner services in school time arts programming provided by an arts partner is $8,000. So this means that 50% of in-school time arts programming costs less than $8,000 and 50% costs more than $8,000. Other categories that we analyze include the median for partner services for consulting support. Consulting support is referred to as professional development, curriculum development, or arts integration. And additionally, we also looked at median costs for field trips, teacher planning, and program supplies.
And so noting if you have any clarifying questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll see how much we actually get to, but we can always email you afterwards if there are any clarifying questions. And so again, just to be clear, we know this isn't technically a true cost of like any kind of partnership. We are in the space of these grant applications that we're requesting for up to $10,000, and generally speaking, like a single semester, potentially in the spring arts partnership. But we hope that this can be a starting point again in publishing this publicly and transparently to starting some conversations. I think we'll see how many, I see a few questions. We will make sure that we can answer just a few to get us continuing forward. Your questions are on the spot. We actually have some answers for them coming up. So I'll pass it back to Christine. Keep that idea of the per hour thing in your mind.
So on this table, we have the same columns as the previous table, but we're breaking it down by different disciplines. This first row lists out the costs for all disciplines. And some of the things what we noticed on this table is that music have the lowest cost for in-school arts programming provided by an arts partner, but they have the highest cost for program supplies. I also want to point out that we have combined literary arts and media arts in the analyses done in the snapshot due to the small sample size for these two disciplines and to protect the anonymity of organizations applying for the Creative Schools Fund. It is also worth noting that due to the small sample size, the costs reported for literary arts and media arts may be skewed and not completely representative. The last row of the table for programmatic discipline is multidisciplinary, which means that in the CSF or Creative Schools Fund application, schools have reported that program has equal focus on multiple artistic disciplines. There's a lot happening on this table, so I'll give you a minute or 30 seconds to review the table on your own before moving on to the next slide.
And talking about maybe we could talk like what kind of, I wouldn't call them trends per se, like, but what are you seeing like within each column? And you'll have time again, maybe 5 or 10 minutes at the end to pull these up and reflect on them on your phone. And so that is, for example, I think in that first column, we do see things roughly $8,000 to $9,000. And you'll see some similar trends with that median in the top row versus split out by disciplines. I will start answering while some people are still looking. I think we have a few good clarifying questions here. I guess, could you clarify what constitutes partner services? And I think at least for us, it's a lot of implementation. It's that in-school time arts programming tied to that residency for Lynn. This cost would reflect generally not a full year. This is per semester. And generally speaking, again, these applications were just for a spring semester programming, though there are very large differences in the number of weeks or number of total programming hours, which we will address actually coming up. And then Christian, do you have items on what falls under consulting support?
Yeah, so consulting support is referred to as cost for professional development, curriculum development, or arts integration.
And to be clear too, the reason why these are named as such is to match CPS budget lines. And so the budget lines that are requested in the Creative Schools Fund application are aligned to how CPS loads their school budgets as well. All right, I think we can move on. There will be more time on for you all to reflect as well.
So on this table, we are reporting on a program hour standardization analysis that we did. We're looking at the average cost per program hour provided by an arts partner during school time. And I know we've got a few questions about this in the chat, so hopefully this answers it. So programs can vary greatly in the time delivered. So in order to compare the cost on a more apples to apples basis, standardization was performed. I'm going to highlight here that we focus on standardization on in-school time arts programming, because in-school time arts programming delivered by teaching artists is a big component of the residency program and its costs. We calculated the total programming hours based on the average weekly minutes of programming and the total program weeks. Then the cost for partner services in school time arts programming were divided by the total programming hours to get the average cost per program hour. On this table, you can see that the average cost per program hour is $182. The median cost, regardless of the discipline, and the median total programming hours is 32 hours.
And so a way to view this is, like, again, this isn't a perfect analysis in a way, but you could view this as including overhead costs, including teaching artist compensation as when you're looking at 182 as a starting point. Again, we know this might not be the reality across the entire sector, but this is just a point in which we could start trying to understand this landscape.
Now on this slide here, like the previous table that we saw, this table also breaks down the median average cost per program hour, the median total programming hours, and the number of responses by discipline. Now, again, I'll give you a minute or so to take a look at the table, but overall, you can see that the average cost per program hour and the total programming hours vary greatly from discipline to discipline.
All right, so to also answer Stacy's question, I think there are a few numbers on classes. Thank you for elaborating on this. Classes, it's usually one classroom is what we're looking at. Again, like one application by one teacher to work with a single arts organization. And so 32 hours, Christine may have mentioned this, like it's possible these numbers are not fully representative. Again, you do see 56 median total programming hours in that second row for dance, which is pretty high for a single semester arts partnership. The Creative Schools Fund may be supplemented by additional funding support as well. And so we don't have that data, but we are reporting what we can on this.
It looks like Kimia also has a question on if this includes supplies, which you'll see later on in the visualization on the blog post that there will be more on program supplies later. But this analysis here typically doesn't include program supplies. And we'll now be moving on into teaching artist compensation. This table reports the median of teaching artists' hourly rate for planning and implementation. The number of responses here is 77 because organizations can apply with multiple schools for the Creative Schools Fund. So we took each distinct compensation figure reported by organizations for this analysis. The median teaching artist hourly rate for planning is $30, and the median teaching artist hourly rate for implementation is $52 across all disciplines. I want to point out that we also reference the Teaching Artists Guild's TA pay rate calculator, and according to the TA pay rate calculator, the livable hourly rate for a teaching artist working in Chicago should be $52.95. So this aligns closely with our analysis here with the median cost hourly rate for implementation at $52.
And on that too, that $52.95, I'll just note there are some assumptions with that. We can share a link to the Teaching Artist Guild's calculator with that $52.95 figure. That includes, I believe, zero dependents, an independent contractor at a professional level. And so there's some assumptions as well. We encourage you also to, of course, like leverage that as a resource. And we use that just to kind of sense like where do our numbers compare? And for those organizations that have just an overall teaching artist rate, that means they put in the same figure for planning and implementation here. And so now on the next slide, we will dive into splitting this out by programmatic discipline.
Yep, so following the previous convention, we have the same columns, but this time breaking it down by disciplines. So this table reports the median teaching artist hourly rate for planning and implementation by all disciplines: dance, music, theater, visual arts, literary arts, and media arts, and multidisciplinary. And like the previous tables on residency program costs, the teaching artist compensation rates tend to vary from discipline to discipline. Most rates are around $30 for planning, with the highest rate for visual arts at $43, and the lowest at theater at $25. It varies a bit in implementation, but most rates are around $50 to $60 per hour. And I'll also give you a minute to take a look at this table.
All right, we'll move on to the live demo.
Now we'll be moving on to the live demo of the interactive visualization that I've been referencing earlier. And you may be wondering what is, oh, I'll just share my screen first.
That's good, Christine.
Okay, so you may be wondering what is an interactive visualization? And this visualization allows you to click on different variables to explore the data. So these different cost items here are on the top, and this is the variables that we use for residency program costs. So each of these tabs are these different line items that you can see. And here's the program supplies, as someone had a question on program supplies earlier. So I'll just click on it, for example. And on the left here, you can also click on a discipline that you're interested in exploring, and this will allow you to look at the distribution of each of the costs by discipline. So for example, if you're interested in dance, you can click on it, and then you can see the distribution of the cost for program supplies for dance. You can also hover over each of the bar for more detailed data, such as the number of responses per each of these ranges here. And we also have the same interactive visualization, but for teaching artist compensation. And so here we have the hourly rate type for planning and implementation. And also, again, we're also bringing it down by discipline. So if you're interested in looking at the music hourly rate for implementation, then you can also look at the distribution here. And again, you can hover over each of the bar for additional information, such as the number of responses, hourly rate, and the organizations that responded that reported that rate. We're hoping that this makes it easier for you to understand the data, as you can discover patterns and insights on a more hands-on way. There's also like a dynamic tool that lets you play with the information to find out what interests you the most. And now I'll be passing it back to Angela to share the screen. But some closing thoughts as we close out this section of the presentation. So I'm having my screen froze for some reason. Okay. So some closing thoughts, and to summarize to wrap up this section of this presentation, we have walked through a lot of numbers and tables, and I think it is important to note that these analyses are still very preliminary, and it serves as an important first step to understand what are some of the different residency program costs and teaching artist compensation rates. In the future, we're hoping to collect more data and hear from you all on how we can improve these analysis and where we can take these analyses. And now we'll be dropping the link to the data snapshot in the chat for you to review the snapshot and also to explore the data on your own. We have about 10 minutes for this portion.
Yes, thank you so much, Christina. Again, I want to give a shout out since she has been the lead analyst on this work, and it's just been really great. We hope you find it useful as well. And so as we move into the section, the link will be dropped. We encourage you, let's take till 1:40 p.m. to review the data yourself. You can find all the tables as well as the interactive visualizations. If they don't first show up, refresh the page. We might have a number of people trying to get in all at the same time. But a way to maybe do it is, again, use that table as a starting point to understand where the averages are. But if you're more curious about the underlying distribution for your specific discipline, for the kind of partnership you're either working as a teaching artist or at a school or as a funder that you fund, we encourage you to use those drop downs, hover over different things, and start thinking about, since I'll cue that we have a discussion coming up, how does this reflect to what you know and understand, and what are your thoughts as well? So, all right, we'll now let you take some time. I believe the link is in the chat. Also, feel free to add clarifying questions. We'll do our best to respond to those in the chat. You have now till 1:40 p.m. to explore this. Unmute, sorry, try one more time.
Yeah, I'm wondering if folks would appreciate having a little bit of music, or if you're fine with whatever sounds are in the place where you are.
Yeah, vote for music. I can pull that. Okay, yes, we all love the music. Shout out to Courtney, who has been the one I was using the music from. We'll go back to that.